understand that Museo, who's leading in the World Cup with so many points that he didn't really even have to compete today, but he did start, has climbed off his bike and gone back to the finish. So that's put him on the rostrum at the end of this race. But the thing is, who's going to win this one? And there you see the sun settling down, because today in autumn, as Bartoli's away, chatting on about the race to falling leaves. You see them on the side of the road. That's what they call the Tour of Lombardy. And there's different course now tackling this final climb of the day, the Col del Gallo. And this is just 30 kilometers to go off the top of the climb. And it looks like Bartoli here has made a very good move indeed. That breakaway group just down the road, Jascula, Nardello, Pistori, Farazin, and this man Bartoli had been away with an early group of riders, I say 22 of them. And now he's chosen to go on this long climb up towards the top. It's quite a tough old climb, some 763 meters above sea level, and the course has been changed somewhat to allow riders to have a bit more combative run in toward the finish. In the past, we've often had the mountains further back and not so much aggression in toward the back end of the race. But Bartoli has chosen to go now on the Col de Gallo, and he's got over the top when he gets there, some 30 kilometers to go. In fact, this climb up here is about 10 kilometers, so he's about 40 kilometers from the finish, something like about 25 miles. And there's consternation behind. It looks like Jascula is being shelled out the back and can't hold this attack at all. And there he is. That's an extremely spirited move indeed at this stage of the game, because I would have thought that he might have stayed with those 5 men. The last time check we had, they'd only got about half minute or so on a chasing group of about 10 or 12 riders, and some pretty good riders in that group: Alano, Hervé, Gianetti, Puttini, Boblik, Richard Sorensen. Quite a good group of riders trying to catch up with this little splinter group which went away from them, and he's determined to press on. Looking then back into the finish, then Museo, I said he'd retired from the race, and we'll be waiting then for the presentation. We've actually got him on the camera here, as we're now getting some pictures out there at the finish of the race, rather than out on the race itself. The lamprey pink hats in the background. They've got one man in that break at the moment, Farazin. And here the Mercato Nuno Bartoli really pressing on, this young spirited rider. He certainly means business now, and he's had quite a successful season so far for a youngish rider, born on the 27th of May in 1970, so that makes him, what, 25 years of age. And looking back there, still Jascula hanging on. There's Farazin from the Lamprey team, and it looks now as if the pressure is on. Nardello is beginning to go away, and dropping Farazin and dropping Jascula. Here is Pistori. So the audacity of Bartoli seems to be paying off now. There's no concerted effort from behind. They're all splitting left, right and centre. Nardello trying to get across now. Well, this man's in fine form. When we covered the Paris Tour, perhaps you may remember, I mentioned to you that in the Wednesday before the Paris Tour, the Paris Bourges as such, it was that fellow we just seen, Nardello, who won that race, an average of some 30 miles an hour. We're back with Farazin. Not had a very successful season so far, Farazin, and Robert Pistori losing ground all the way up this climb. So too Jascula. Well, it's down to penny numbers as the riders tackle this long climb toward the top. There's Nardello. In fact, Farazin has got up to him now, so Nardello and Farazin joining forces to tackle the gap, and look at the gap that's been opened up by Bartoli. That's a tremendous burst of speed by this young rider. He's showing here he's a very good climber indeed. Earlier in the season, he won the 3 days of Japan, which is a pretty flattish sort of race up in Belgium. There's Francesco Moser looking fit enough, I suppose, to go and attack the hour record yet again. Nice to see him here on the screen. Francesco Moser, past victor in this race. Looking back at my list, he won in 1978 and 1975. Moser, twice winner of the Tour of Lombardy, which is a much changed course this year. They started out at Varese and went from west towards east with a big loop round the lake. They touched on the edge of Lake Como. An absolutely amazing lake, by the way. Many riders and perts have been inspired by Lake Como's gentle vistas. It's a tremendous lake with round about it all the alpine peaks. In fact, Shelley wrote, "The beauty of this lake surpasses anything I've seen hitherto." Well, the riders didn't have much time to enjoy it because they had to tackle the first big climb of the day up the Madonna del Gazzello, and that really, at the start of the race, is where the 22 or 23 riders decided to put the hammer down and broke the whole thing up. So a lot of riders way back down the field at the moment, just I think perhaps thinking of their holidays, allowing these one-offs now to try and sort out who's going to win this Tour of Lombardy, the 89th of the series, which dates back in the calendar to 1905. Just shows you how long this race has been on the calendar. Well, it's changed quite a bit over the years, the particular route it's taken. And this winding climb being used for the first time on the Tour of Lombardy, and Bartoli making the maximum use of it. It actually used to start and finish in Milan, and it's organised by Gazzetta dello Sport, who also organised the Tour of Italy. And they used to finish as well on the Vigarelli track in Milan, but this time a very twisty finish at the end of this. Cerrone now. We really are having a roll call of honour of the top champions who are gathered to watch this, I say, rather different version of the Tour of Lombardy, which is going to finish in Bergamo. And still then Bartoli pressing on with his advantage, and the rest absolutely splattered all over the road. Of the Tour of Lombardy. Bartoli here on the attack at the moment. This young man looking down the list of the World Cup positions. He's lying 9th overall at the moment with 75 points. If he presses on with this one and wins the race and collects 50 points at the end, then in fact he will get 125 points to his score, and that should move him into second spot above Andrei Chamil of Russia, who has 114 points. Your Mazeo, who's already climbed off his bike, has got 199 points. He's going to be the World Cup winner for 1995, but the question is who's going to finish second at the moment. Chamil 114 points, not riding today, nor is Jalabert with 111 points. Giannetti is riding today. He's in the chasing group at the moment, not the one 33 seconds back to the various riders we've been seeing on screen so far, but a chasing group which is about over a minute back, and Giannetti's in that one trying to move up into second place on the general classification. So Chamil not defending his second spot. Be bad news, my friend Mike Earp and Chris Earp back in Malvern, who are great Chamil followers, so he might lose his second spot today, the bold man from Lotto, because Lotto have decided not to make the trip down to the flatlands of Lombardy. Well, it's flat just down south from here, but they have taken in some little climbs which surround the lakes. And here Daniel Nardallo has got Fares in for company, so these two are the only two chasers left to try and do something about catching back young Bartoli, who's way down the road at the moment. And somehow I think if these two stick at it, they might well catch up with this young chap here. I'm surprised he's made such an audacious attempt to get away. And talking of audacity, by the way, the man who would really like to win this race this year, Claudio Chiappucci, he was second last year, second in 1992. He's been shelled out of a chasing group at the moment, but he's trying to get back. So we keep our fingers crossed for the bold Claudio, who's come into the race in extremely good form. Those who are Claudio Chiappucci fans might like to know that he won the Tour of Piedmont this week when he was in first place, Zanini second, Cassani third, and looking at this little group here, Farazan, who's just we had a look at there, was seventh in the Tour of Piedmont. So Claudio Chiappucci chasing hard to try and get up to this group now, but the last time we heard well over a minute and a half down and trying to get back to a chasing group of about 10 or 12 men. That gives you some idea of this twisting climb, new to the Tour of Lombardy, a race which, as I say, dates back to 1905, and the last time a Brit won it was way back in 1965 when Tom Simpson, my very good late friend there, won the race then in 65. And Tom that year was also the world champion, and he was riding in the World Championships jersey. At the start of the race we did see Olano in the group. In fact, he's in a chasing group at the moment wearing the World Championship jersey, but if he's going to emulate Tom Simpson and win the race today, he's got to go quite a bit and catch back these riders up here. Tom actually went on attack way back at the Gazala, which we've been over at the start of this race as well, when the race was being run from Milan to Como. And he was aggressive all day. He took 11 riders with him. That was, what, 30 years ago when Tom Simpson rode off. And he took a tremendous group of riders with him, but he kept attacking them all the way. And it wasn't until the final ascent of the day that the San Fermo del Battaglia that Tom Simpson attacked Motta and just wore him down totally and raced in to finish by over 3 minutes clear of the rest of the field. So just let's think now at this moment of ex-world champion 30 years ago, the great Tom Simpson, who won this race as world champion. And that's the chasing group I'm talking about, beginning now to reorganize itself at the back and pick up the early riders who are out there with Bartoli and Falazin. And the new kid on the block, Daniel Nardello. And that's Nardello and Falazin trying to chase down this young man Bartoli. Well, the Italians are looking for a victory today, and they've got 3 riders in this, well, let's say leading group. They've got 1 here and 2 chasing. So the chances are perhaps they might get an Italian victory. The last Italian victory was way back in 1987 when Marino Argentin won the race from Eric Van Lancker. That was the year after Baroncelli won it as well for Italy. And looking back down those lists of winners, the bold Sean Kelly winner in 83, 85 and 91. I mentioned Sean Kelly because the Irish still have an interest in this race. The World Cup victor will get a lovely piece of Waterford crystal made out there at Waterford in Ireland, not far from Sean Kelly's Caddick-on-Shore home. And here we are, the Collegallo being used. And watching this one, Sean, you're looking at a course which you haven't used in the past when you won it 3 years. But will this man Bartoli get to the end and take his piece of crystal? Time will tell. Here comes the team car. Bartoli's still getting on with this one. Had been looked upon as one of the star performers in the Italian cycle racing scene way back in 1993. But he turned pro. He won the first race on Italian calendar, the Tour of Sicily, and has been a man who's prepared to show great confidence in his ability. And here he goes over the top of this climb, and there's some good downhill stretches ahead of him now. I'm looking at the little route here. In fact, it's all downhill to the finish. He's now covered 222 kilometres. That's some 30 kilometres to go down to finish in Bergamo. Having climbed some 10 kilometres up to the top of that one, 763 metres above sea level. I've just seen on the top of the church there, Madonna di Ciclisti. I'm not quite sure about that particular church on the top of this one, but certainly on the first climb of the day, the Madonna del Ghisallo, there is a church up there which collects, or has had given to it, the jerseys of the famous cyclists over the years, and it's almost like a museum. And certainly these churches up on the top of the big climbs do become a worshipping point for cyclists, and a point where many of the clerics decide to collect cycling memorabilia for some strange reason. That's Italy for you. And there they go, down the other side. And there he goes. I was mentioning Waterford Crystal. In fact, another crystal company, Brierley Hill Crystal in the West Midlands in England, that's making, still a traditional way, the glasses which were first founded way back in 1947 by Mr. Breeze. They've actually produced a hand-cut crystal glass for a crystal vase for a very good friend of mine, who was at the presentation of the Tour de France just a few days ago, David Walker. And David's going to arrive on Land's End to John O'Groats next year, and he's handing over this hand-cut crystal vase from Bradley Crystal, which has been inscribed with Fabio Casatelli in memory of a great champion. And that's another great gesture when David arrives from Land's End to John O'Groats next year. He's going to collect money and try and get himself sponsored to obtain money to go into the memorial fund, Fabio Casatelli, for Fabio Casatelli's fund. So good luck, David, on the Land's End John O'Groats. It's a long way, says he, knowing it both ways, up and down, but I hope you raise lots of funds for that very worthwhile charity indeed. Well, Casatelli was an Italian, and now we've got 3 Italians out at the front of this race, so it could be an Italian victory for the first time, I'll say, since 1987. The low sun, the autumn leaves, the season coming towards the end. The Japan Cup is next on the list. Tadao Kiyopuchi chasing hard to try and get up to this little lot at the moment. Having won that race I just mentioned to you, the Tour Piedmont, that's the first one. Another grand champion as well. So we've got Gimondi, we've seen Moser, we've seen a whole crowd of the top men here. I'm looking back to see when Gimondi won the race in 1973. We just had a look at him. Gimondi is an advisor to the Bianchi company at the moment, or has been for some years now, and nice to see him looking very fit indeed. Bartoli on the way down. Through the falling leaves and the setting sun, and determined to try and stay away from those 2 chasers. But although it's all the way down, there's not a lot of flat, but it just goes into Bergamo. The last 5 kilometres or so, it does flatten off a bit, and I'd have thought that perhaps he might have been happier to go with those lot, but you never know. He's been an audacious young rider, this fella. Clipping the corners, the traffic stopped from coming back up the other way. Nearly hammered the Armco that time round. Keep your fingers crossed for him, because there was a terrible crash in the Milan-Turin earlier on this week, and we watched Bartoli out the saddle now. I don't know if you've caught up with it back in England, but Marco Pantani and Francesco Secchiari and David Dall'Olio were hurt when a car came up against the race, despite the fact that it had not supposed to be on the race. It came up against the race, and the 3 of them went straight into it. I don't say car, it was a Jeep actually. They were 42 seconds back to these 2 here. He may just hang on and do it. But imagine how these riders are cutting the corner. Just on a corner like this, as they went swinging around the corner, the 3 riders, they got about 8 kilometres to go from the finish, and this Jeep, 4x4 Jeep, came out onto the course, came up the other way, and bashed the 3 riders, went straight in the front of the Jeep. They're all very badly hurt indeed. Worst of them, though, is Pantani, who took the bronze medal in the World Championship just a couple of weeks ago. Pantani rushed to hospital, been operated upon. He's broken his leg between the knee and the ankle at the femur. He's broken it in 2 places, actually, double fractures, completely broken. Sorry, it's tibia. The tibia has been broken. They're about 240. They're dropping back then, that group. He's doing quite well at the moment. Bartoli, that's the group containing Olano. And here they are stringing along. There's also Sorensen in there. Richard is there. Bobrik is in there at the well at the moment. So a good gap. This could be just exactly what those 3 breakaway riders wanted. And here he is. That's a very, very good mood indeed. So there's a fair chance he's going to hang on to the finish and get this one. Keep your fingers crossed then he doesn't fall off either. But what a sad piece of news then for Pantani, who's broken his fibula. And so in fact, he won't be able to walk on his leg, they say, or do much. For 3 months he's going to be in trouble. and it may be 6 months before he can actually get back on his bike and race in competition. So looking at the Tour de France, which was launched this week on Tuesday by the Society of the Tour de France, which is a very mountainous course. We were all thinking, well, this is a course for Veronk or Pantani, but now Pantani, if he's going to be out for 6 months, is really going to have to struggle and work hard to get back in to ride the Tour de France next year. What a great disappointment. It was Dello who fractured his left femur, and the third rider, Francesco Secchiari, had a crack in his pelvis. That was a terrible accident in the Milan-Torino, which was won by Zanini with Sorensen, who's in the chasing group at the moment in second place. Casagrande, also that chasing group, was in third place. Nardello, who's just behind this fellow here at the moment, he was fourth in that race at Milan-Turin when they had that terrible crash. That is a sizable little gap at the moment, and they're rocking along now, but he's really almost out of sight, out of mind. But you can see the impression of speed now for a helicopter as the Mapei cars come up here. .34 seconds back. Oh, they've chipped a little way back at it. Certainly 2 against 1. They should be able to catch him, but you never know. He's riding very much inspired at the moment, is Bartoli, hanging on at the front there. And the gap back, something like about 2 minutes. Yeah, they've gone down to 34 seconds here, they say. So, well, they almost have him in sight shortly, so they could catch him before the finish in Bergamo. The time check given by the motorcycle, some 34 seconds back to the 2 chasers. We've also seen various time checks saying it's over 40 seconds, but whatever it is, on this 89th Tour of Lombardy, this young man Bartoli at the moment is still desperately trying to hang on to get away, to stay away on the run in towards Bergamo, where we're finishing for the first time on the Tour of Lombardy, which was, I say earlier, was a Milan, then it went for many years into Como to finish there, and that was where Tommy Simpson won into Como, and last year was one of many years we finished at Monza out on the edge of the racetrack. So still Bartoli pressing on to try and stay away. There's just the odd little up and down. It's, I say, it's pretty flat all the way down to it. If you can just hang on in here, there's another descent yet to come, so keep your fingers crossed for him. I mentioned about Tom Simpson winning some 30 years ago. That's an anniversary we're celebrating, but another anniversary of the oldest cycling club in the world. 125 years for the Pickwick Bicycle Club. They don't ride the bikes very much at the moment, but congratulations to the Pickwick Bicycle Club, the oldest cycling club in the world, celebrating 125 years of being, said he, being an ex-president of the club. Forgot to mention all the way through the season, this is the last big road race of the season. I thought I'd better put that in. I was being drummed out at the Christmas lunch. 30 seconds. Well, if that time check on the motorcycle was right at 34, they've chipped back another 4 seconds. As you'd expect with 2 lively lads here trying to fetch back the one rider, Bartoli. No sign then of Pistori or Jascula. They both seem to have been shelled out the back and will no doubt be collected by the chasing group at some point. You see the speed they come off these mountains. I mentioned that terrible crash when those 3 riders hammered into the front of this 4x4 Jeep that was coming up the other way. They actually, when they picked up the wreckage, one of the riders' bicycle, his little computer had stopped on impact, and it would stop at 75 kilometers per hour. Now, 80 kilometers an hour is 50 miles an hour, so they hit this vehicle at just under 50 miles an hour. No wonder there's broken femurs, broken tibias, and cracked pelvises. You can just imagine the speed at which these bike riders were going when they hit that Jeep, and the Jeep's coming at them as well. So it must have been a terrible, terrible crash. In fact, we've already had one in this race early on as the brake was coming along before they closed the roads down. One of the spectators' motor cars got clouted by another vehicle going the other way. Those are trials and tribulations of having racing on open roads. Normally they're well policed and kept clear of vehicles, but we had a little shunt which fortunately didn't injure anybody earlier on in this race today as well. What's the gap like now? Oh, it's about the same. But they're travelling very quickly indeed, these two chasers. Mappe car much in evidence. There are the little graphics coming up. Bartoli, 25 years of age. Parazin and Nordello. This young lad Nordello coming through as an amateur. He had 40 victories before he turned pro in 1994. He was also the Italian junior champion, and he was in the team time trial squad, which won the Italian military championship as well. So he certainly knows how to time trial a bit. He's got Farazin with him, who's a much more skilled and experienced rider. Farazin, winner of the Giro del Trentino last year, took a second place in San Sebastian back in ·93, but not done much this year at all. So he's got an up-and-coming fellow here, Nardello. In that Paris-Bourges race, when they averaged some 30 miles per hour, they did 150 kilometres in the first 3 hours. That's 50 kilometres per hour, which is about 36 miles an hour. So the lad can punt along a bit. So keep your fingers crossed for Bartoli out here, because he's got a couple of very, very strong people coming after him. Well, to keep this up then, with 3 Italians in the break heading in toward the finish, they should have that victory which has eluded them since 1987 when Argentin won the race. By the way, Argentin, who's heading up a new ZG Mobili team, which is reputed to be signing Fondries to ride Fondries bikes. We understand he's having a bit of difficulty funding the team at the moment, so he's only signed about 9 riders and is searching around for a co-sponsor. It seems the money isn't quite as forthcoming as they thought before, but knowing Argentin, I would have thought that he's got enough contacts probably to dig up the extra brass. Otherwise he might have to sign a lot of young aspiring pros for next to no money just to make his numbers up. The difficulty is then, of course, if you have a team which is done a bit, excuse me, say, on the cheap, you can't get enough star riders, and the selection process for like the Tour de France is very rigid, and the Tour of Italy and the Tour of Spain next year. The first 18 teams, oh, there they go. Hey, they close the gap. 4, 6, 8, there's about 10 riders there. 8, yep, and there's the World Championship jersey in it. They're certainly closing that gap. Pascal Richard is there. Yeah, 2 of the Gavis riders. Bobrick is there, the winner last year, and there Ginetti's also made it through. And yeah, Richard, Ginetti, Bobrick, and Pascal Hervé from France, the Festina rider, and there's the world champion. So this is the remnants of the early group that caused all the trouble, and those 5 men went away. They swept up Pistori. I haven't seen what's happened to Yaskula at the moment, but this is a very good, strong group. They're the world champion. That's nice to see the world championship jersey. And I wonder, in fact, if he's going to catch that group. And Olano, then, the new world champion, might repeat what Tom Simpson did 30 years ago. That's win the Tour of Lombardy wearing the rainbow jersey of world champion. Certainly Olano can sprint. And looking at this little group here, the Sorensen and Richard of the MG team are going to work very hard indeed, because going into the race today on the team classifications, we look down at Olano in his rainbow jersey. I'm just checking the figures here. On the team classification, MG, who haven't got anybody up in that little 3-man group at the moment, have 88 points. Mappe have 74 points in the Sorry, no, it's closer. 88 points for MG and 86 points for Mappe. So only 2 points separate the teams on the World Cup classification. Now, Mappe have got a rider up in this leading group at the moment because they've got Nardello in that group. And what's going to happen now, I'm certain, is that the MG boys are going to drive this one hard to try and get some points to ensure that they don't lose that team award in the World Cup. But the second place is still wide open because this young lad Bartoli here, coming into the race today, I told you he was, well, in 9th spot, 75 points. If he hangs on there and gets 50 points at the finish of the thing, he could rocket up into 2nd spot. So there's still a heck of a lot to go for, and every reason for them to ride hard to try and get to Bergamo first ahead of this chasing group of riders. Nardello and Falazin. Falazin on the front, Nardello behind him, after Bartoli. And we've seen another group of riders closing down the gap. In fact, it's down to 13 seconds now for Bartoli. This could all come together after the race, which started out at Varese, a new course, Varese-Bergamo, which took the riders out from the westerly direction in towards an east, and they travelled round the edge of Lake Como. Beautiful part of the world with some very picturesque little towns reflected in the clear water of the lake, and the foot of the Alps was the route the riders took to begin with, and now they're heading back into Bergamo, in towards the industrialised part of the Lombardy plain. Just 15 kilometres to go now. All of this takes part somewhat north of Milan on the flat part of the plain. A real hotbed of cycling as far as the riders are concerned, going out, training around the Alps, and much of the finance coming from the big companies in the area around Milan. And here they've got him, so he's been caught back now, and straight through they go. Look at the way the fellow's going on the front. He's absolutely travelling along here like a great rate of knots. Daniel Nardello, this rider on the front has to be somewhere we've got to keep our eyes open for. Only turned pro last year for 1994. When he won a stage and the overall classification in the Australian Alpine Classic, but he's come good this year. And there Falazin fighting, I think, to show again to sponsors that he's in with a shout for a good contract next year. 3 Italian riders. So if they keep this up, we can get an Italian victory, I'll say for the first time since Argentina in 1987. As far as the Italians are concerned, Fausto Coppi was undoubtedly their grand champion. He had 4 victories on the trot between 1946 and 49, and then another in 1954. Eddie Merckx managed to win this race a couple of times. But we're seeing modern cycling here with the tactics being played out by the teams. And this chasing group, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 of them at the moment. Milano, something if the Spanish get up there and win this one. The last spot, it seems to have been yo-yoing this time. There's Hervé. He's been tipped as being a good rider to do well today. And we'll have to wait and see what he turns out, his performance is. In there too, that's Zanini. Quick look at him. And, yep, I said we got both Sorensen and Richard in this group. Richard, winner of 1993, and last year finishing 3rd spot. Richard, until 150 metres from the line, thought he got stitched, he got caught and brought back in again, so he wasn't very happy with that last year. Zanini now going through. Also next to have they're really working well here. That was Pistori, who got dropped on the climb. And there we're looking at number 26, Pascal Richard, I'm just talking to you about. And there, number 94, Mauro Giannetti, who has to finish in the top 14 places to get points today to be certain of getting that 2nd spot. Unless, of course, Bartoli wins the sprint and takes the number 1 spot. There, this group of riders really are beginning to go. We've got some extremely good riders in that group. Puccini we just looked at here. He's been in the break ever since the race started. We had an early break going. So all the riders we've just been looking at on this 252-kilometre race have opened up such a gap. A lot of other riders have just said enough is enough. And the last we heard, Claudio Chiappucci was fighting to try and get on. Well, he's a demon descender, Although in the World Championship, if you watch Eurosport's coverage of that, you remember that Claudio went down with an awful bang. And when he said he thought actually he could make it to the finish with a chance of getting up on the rostrum, well, he crashed out of that one. 10 kilometres to go. So the interest really ranges now on whether this young man Bartoli here, who's lying 9th on the World Cup classification, can win the race and move up into second spot ahead of Jamil of Russia and Jalabert, who are not riding. Giannetti is in the chasing group. He's lying 4th in the World Cup at the moment. We had a quick look at him. He's got 100 points, and to move up above Jamil, he's got to collect 14 points at the finish. And I'm just looking a quick look at my book now. Hang on, don't go away. 14 points, 14 points. Yeah, he has to finish in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spot or better. In fact, he's got to go better than that. He's got to finish in 6th spot. Giannetti in the yellowish jersey has got to, he's in this little group now. There are 2 yellow jerseys in there of the Polti team. One is Pistori, the other one is Giannetti. So in fact, Giannetti's got to finish in 6th spot or better. And oh, is Claudio Chiappucci. 6th spot or better for Giannetti to move into 2nd spot ahead of Andrei Jamil of Russia, the Lotto rider who's not riding today. Casagrande in that little group as well. So another yellowish jersey is Mirko Tanuna. He won't chase this one down either, because his teammate, in fact, this has got bigger. I thought we hadn't had Casagrande on the list before, and Claudio Chiappucci is also up there, so they're coming back from behind. There, Casagrande, there, Claudio Chiappucci. 1 or 2 more riders have jumped across from the chasing group. Bobrick is there at the moment, and Zanini. And it's down to 1 minute and 3 seconds. That is some sizable group of very, very good chasers. So these 3 have got their work cut out now. Round about, what, some just over 9 kilometres to go in towards the finish. If the gap's a minute, that's going to be, yes, it's 9 it is. So I saw a 10-kilometre ball before. Oh, it's 8. They slash up 8, 9, and there's 8 on the side of the road. And so it's about a minute. We're talking of having to be caught back at the rate of something like about 10 seconds per kilometre to be caught on the run in towards the finish. And that's quite feasible. They'll be travelling here at around about 27 to 28 miles an hour. That bunch behind can go that sniff faster. Oh, problems. What's happening here? The Mappe rider, Nardello. I was looking to see, I thought his front tyre had punctured, but it's not to be. He's obviously gone back and asked his team director what he should do now. And that's the chasing group. And looking through that little lot at the moment, I can see why he'd ask, by the way, because as Alana, who rides for Mappe, is in that chasing group, and he's the world champion. As far as Daniel Nardello is concerned, he'd have to check with his team manager. Should he continue to drive forward now, or should he sit on the back and allow this group to be caught? Because the gap's coming down all the time, and Olano in the World Championship jersey would like to do a Tom Simpson here and get this this victory the same year as he takes the rainbow jersey. So I'm sure that's a question that Nardello will be asking his team manager. Should he chase, or should he drive hard, or should he sit up and not do much to aid this one to go? Let's see how he goes. Well, he's still going through, so team manager's saying, well, you know, you pay your money, it takes your choice, off you go, young man. A lot must depend on Nardello's chance. He's going back to ask another question, perhaps he didn't hear the answer. Prego, prego. Che? Shout a bit louder this time. Well, it looks as if the team manager is quite happy to say, go on, drive with this one and take your chance, because certainly Nadal is in extremely good form at the back end of this year. I'll say fourth in the Milan Turin, and he won the Paris-Bourges just about 12 days ago. So probably they're saying, well, nice if the world champion gets it, but drive on with this one, despite the fact the gap is coming down. The chasers are cutting down that deficit. Late autumn shimmering heat. Yes, it's still quite warm on the Lombardy plain. The riders now hammering along here, this chasing group getting bigger all the time, and you can see why the pressure's on here. Looking there at number 94, that's Malo Giannetti, who desperately wants to close down on those three riders up in front, because if Bartoli gets the sprint and takes the stage, then Giannetti will not be able to improve on his current placing in the World Cup. And it's now still 1 minute. It's been coming down all the time, and this fella's really driving hard on the front there. Daniel Nardello, just a second-year pro. He's obviously being given the go-ahead by the MAPE team, and you can see the team cars behind them. The red car is that of the commissaire, and the rest of the cars then still in behind the riders. Well, Mr. Pinarello will be happy to get that man across the line in first. But Pinarello, of course, supplies the bikes to Miguel Indurain, who flew back overnight from his abortive attempt on the hour record to be at the Tour de France presentation, and had the good fortune to be able to interview him on Tuesday, and he seemed to think the Tour de France route this year wasn't going to be that difficult. He just had to change his tactics a bit. He seemed quite calm and collected about it, despite the fact there was something like 21 either first, second or category climbs in the race, one mountain time trial, and what looks like a very, very tough route indeed on the run down into Pamplona, his hometown. So that's going to be a tremendous race next year, the old Tour de France, and Indurain seemed quite relaxed about the whole thing. And he, of course, rides on a Pinarello bike, which Mr. Benesto has nicely painted in the colour. Oh, another little bit of news for you, if you haven't caught up with it. Indurain, of course, didn't get his hour record, and another disappointed person was Jenny Longo, who went for the hour record at Bogota. She was attacking the record, the hour record set up by a British girl, Yvonne McGregor, 47.411 kilometres on the 17th of June at Manchester. Well, Jenny Longo, who is the reigning time trial and road champion, she in fact was looking for another success to add to her list, because she's had the hour record before, and off she went on the track, and after 12 kilometres she abandoned. She'd been losing time all the way through on a 57/15 gear, and just couldn't make up the ground and just retired from the scene. She might go to Stuttgart. I think she's talking about having another go at the back end of this year, but that record that Yvonne McGregor put up has certainly made the life difficult. Oh, here we go, jumping around the place. In these closing kilometres, these three have got to watch each other now. I'm not quite sure, looking at this. I think Falazin probably, who's been, well, second, sorry, in the Italian Championship, third and fourth. There he goes down the road. He is probably the better two sprinters. And he's gone away. He's not waiting for the sprint. That surprises me. He's a cagey fella, and he's gone away. I thought he'd been the best sprinter of this little trio, but he's decided to go for it now with a couple of kilometres to go, and the two are looking at each other. Well, surely they've got to pull this fella back, because he's got the best sprint. They should be jumping him. And the gap's opened up, and they've got 2 kilometres to go. The determination on the face in of Gianni Falazin is clear to see for you all back at home, and he's had to make the move. Perhaps he was too concerned about that big bunch coming up from behind. They certainly haven't got the leaders totally in sight, but some good gallopers in that bunch, and Falazin now has decided to go on this run into Bergamo. It's new as far as these riders are concerned. They've not been on this finish line before. It very much twists and turns. It goes, what, for no more than about 300 metres, then turns, then 300 metres, then turns. They're coming down the towards the kilometre point, the Via Moro Gavazzini, and then a sharp right-hand turn in the Via a Bonomelli, and then straight the way down into the finish after a left-hand turn. So it very much twists and turns on the run-in, which could suit a one-lone rider attack like this. He's done just the right thing, but they don't really know this running to here. At least most of the riders don't, except if you come from this neck of the woods, he'll be out and suss the thing. And I'll have to check, says he, quickly grabbing his books, as to where Falazin comes from, because he might know this finish, and that might be the reason he decided to go away with 2 kilometres to go, because it twists and turns, and it could suit him at the moment. He's out of sight, and those riders behind have got to do something about pulling him back. Elation for the Tifosi, then he's kept his lead all the way through now, and he's really opened up the gap, and so he's coming in now clear of the chaser. I had a quick look down at my little route, and he's made his way through that little lot now, and Falazin is going to get this one all the way through that last kilometre. Twist and turn, he had no problem at all to stay away, and he's got the victory he's so much been looking for so long this season. Falazin first across the line then. Comes from Marastica, which is not this part of the world, but certainly he chose the right time to go there. Now Bartoli is going to ride into second or third. Let's see what happens here. He's got to try and win this one. As Nardella goes past him, a sarcastic round of applause from Bartoli. I don't think he was too happy with the amount of work he did, and then got caught by those two and got jumped. Well, I think they've only got themselves to blame, those two, for allowing Falazin to go away just like that. And well, the group behind is splitting as Pascal Richard now comes away at the front of this little group. In fact, no, it's Sorensen. My mistake looking back there. It's Sorensen. I just quickly looked down at the MG colours. It's Sorensen. I can see his haircut, which is very significant. The Danish rider coming in to 4th spot. So Sorensen there for MG takes that one, just shaking his head. They just didn't make it at the end. And the big sprint coming up the moment. That's Zanini on the left-hand side. Has he got it? Yes, just ahead of Claudio Chiappucci. Zanini from Claudio Chiappucci. And for Falazin, triumph at long last after a pretty flat season this year. Last year he only won the Giro del Trentino. He's got the Tour of Lombardy to add to his list of palmares. Just imagine that, taking off 2 kilometres to go, and those two behind let him go. They were just sorting themselves out, and somehow young Bartoli, you can see how he was so disgusted with that one, but he did so much work. But I just wonder if he tired himself out by going up on that long climb. But still, I think if he came down to a sprint finish, this fellow should really perhaps have beat them to the line. So the 30-year-old has shown the youngsters just how to do it, and adds his name to the roll call of honours, becomes the first Italian to win the Tour of Lombardy since 1987, some 8 years back. And that certainly is going to please the Italian supporters. The Italians who started so strong at the beginning part this year didn't have too good a part through the centre of it, but really come back towards the back end of the year. For Mazzeo, he's certainly going to take the World Cup. He got enough points coming this way. But according to my quick calculations here, Bartoli with 25 points, who started out with 75, has now probably gone to 3rd spot on the World Cup. The victory then for Falazin. He hasn't scored any points in the World Cup so far, according to my notes here, but at least he got the victory, which I'm sure, looking back when he retires, because right all the way to 30 now, he's probably only got about 2-3 years to go, might well say, well, that was my crowning glory. And there he has the Giro de Lombardy trophy. And I hope we have time on Eurosport to show you the presentation to the overall World Cup victor in Bergamo, where beautiful autumn occasion. That's confirmation in Nardella, Bartoli, Sorensen. I'm looking at 10. So Giannetti was not in that 6th place, so Giannetti is not going to be into 2nd spot overall on the World Cup. And whilst certainly the World Cup victor is Mazzeo, I think probably Bartoli might have jumped himself up into a similar point, 100.